Hi, welcome back to Cheyenne, Wyoming Urban Gardener. This is Debbie, and I think we're finally getting somewhere on all of our vegetables out here. Sorry about that. It seems like every time I start a video, there always has to be trucks or motorcycles or planes or helicopters or something. We live right in downtown, and you just heard some air brakes. We live right in downtown, so it's kind of hard to get away from all of the noise out here. Anyway, we're looking at the red pear tomatoes. You just saw the Black Prince tomatoes, as well as a pumpkin that was sitting on the vine, and I think it's going to be white pumpkin. So we are finally starting to get some cooperation out of all of our plants. We've had multiple hailstorms every single day for weeks now, and before that, from May 14th all the way through to the second week of July, we had rain every single day, and then here lately we've had hailstorms after hailstorms after hailstorms every single day, and anywhere from an inch to 2 inches falling of rain every 20 minutes. So, and back to back after that, it's like we have 1 or 2 or 3 rainstorms, hailstorms every day, and it's been going on like this for weeks. So we have gotten damage on pretty much all of the plants. They're still producing, they're still doing their best, but man, they have taken a beating, and we've had a few tomatoes that have been completely lost. You can see here at the end, there's an empty one right there, and a tomato that is gone because it just got nailed by hail damage and it died out. You can see that there are a few of these in here with really curled up leaves. There's some browning in here, some yellowing in here. That is from too much rain, too much water. And we've got premature turning of tomatoes, basically coloring up, that they should have gotten a little bit bigger, and it's just, again, all the rain that's happening. And then when we get sun, we get really a lot of sun all of a sudden, so it's triggering them to go ahead and get mature when they're not really even ready. Now, we do have plenty of tomatoes on the vines. There's still tomatoes that are blooming and setting fruit, so we'll still get plenty all throughout this month and hopefully into the beginning of next month, even though it'll start getting cold by then usually. We've got peppers finally setting. We've had some peppers that stunted completely. They're still blooming. They'll produce a little bit of something, but it won't be very big at all. And these guys just completely stunted out, and it was just too much rain. You can see that the leaves are a little bit yellowed, and that's just, again, from too much rain. Another great surprise that we had is that we had Eat Wyoming. We had contacted Eat Wyoming, and we have been selling some of our excess produce to them, stuff like that we have plenty of, such as green beans and herbs and squash and stuff like that. Usually we have squash out the wazoo. This year we have not had that much squash because, again, it has been too cool and too wet. We are not going to get any watermelons or cantaloupes, I'm afraid. They are now setting on the vines, but they're still very small, and I don't think they'll have enough time to get ready, but we gave it a good effort. I did not plant very many watermelons and cantaloupes this season, just because I could see right off the bat that it was looking like it was going to be cool and wet. So we just didn't do that. We have a few, but I don't know if they'll come to fruition or not, but I doubt it very seriously. We had a Jubilee watermelon, we had Rainbow Sherbet, a couple of doll babies, and the doll babies never got any bigger than basically hand-sized. And we have Sharon Tate cantaloupes and Orange Dew and Ambrosia, and none of those look like that they are setting fruit except for the Ambrosia cantaloupe. So just too cool, too wet. Well, we did have a few hot days, but not enough to really get them up and going. Our kiddie pools are doing fantastic in regards to everything else that is out in the garden container wise, but they are just rocking it out. They've had a little bit of damage, but overall they are just bukus of tomatoes in here. And we've had some loofahs that are starting on the vines. You can see a couple of loofahs there. We've had pumpkins that are setting. We've got finally some summer squash down in there that we'll be able to harvest. And our sunflowers over here are blooming. Look at those sunflowers. And I did not expect for that one to look like that because we planted a lot of red velvet sunflowers and white sunflowers with some red centers. I'll show you one of those in just a moment that did bloom, but we expected more of that and we got more of this. So I'm not sure if they were cross-pollinated when I got the seeds, because I actually got the seeds from a couple of companies. I broke down and bought some seeds this season for sunflowers, and I'm not too happy so far. They're beautiful, and don't get me wrong, we'll take any flowers we get, but they are not what they said on the package. And the same situation happened with some peppers that I bought. I did not buy very many peppers. I had a lot of my own seed, and the ones that I bought have turned out to be completely something other than what I purchased, and from a very well known plant distributor. So not too happy with those. Our marigolds and things in our garden towers are absolutely rocking it out. We've had strawberries after strawberries after strawberries, and loads of strawberries still setting on the vines. You can see loads of them in there, and plenty of strawberries in our kiddie pool. We have harvested and harvested and harvested, and I've lost count on how many pints at this point. We do have a super sauce tomato that we started from our own seed that is exactly what it's supposed to be. You can see the super sauce tomatoes setting on the vines, and they've had a lot of damage from hailstorms, but they're still going strong. And you can see all these tomatoes in here. We've got a mixture of pink Belgiums, old Germans, ox hearts, all kinds of things in there, and they are just rocking it out. They've got tomatoes all over them. And we have lost a tomatillo, too much rain again. So it looks like we will be able to harvest a few tomatillos off of this guy, but overall it is just kicking the bucket, really. The rest of our tomatillos are doing fantastic. And our Gigante tomatillo is finally setting fruit like crazy on it. It took a while, and this guy is huge. You can see our door on the house, and it is taller than about halfway up the door, and the door is actually about 2 feet from the concrete. So this thing is just massive, and the spread on it is massive. The cantaloupes are at the base of it, and you can see there that they've gotten a lot of damage from the hailstorms, and just in general, just a lot of damage from hail and rain and everything else that we've had every single day. We did get a cucumber today from our Tasty Green cucumber variety from this vine right here. It is huge now. Our ranunculus bloomed and gone, and we had a cucumber in there, and it is just rocking it out. There's lots of cucumbers that are sitting on the vines right now, so we're going to have lots and lots of cucumbers to hopefully pickle and all kinds of stuff, although the English cucumber variety is not really that good to pickle. You can do some like refrigerator pickles with them, but canning them, not really that great for that. We've gotten peppers that are setting on the pepper vines out here, but again, too much rain, too much damage from hail, and they've really struggled. We got lots and lots of tomatoes, like I said, but again, too much rain, too much hail, and they have a lot of damage on the actual fruit. Our artichokes are finally setting artichokes on them. You can see those there. They are pretty good size. They're a little over hand sized, which is pretty decent. And there's a few on them. And we've got some watermelons that are setting on the vines. You can see that. But unfortunately, like I said, I don't know if they're going to finish out. These are Jubilees, and they're supposed to be anywhere from 15 to 30 pounds. And I'm not sure they'll make that. They're just so far behind at this point. But they are still blooming and still trying to produce. But at this point, I'm taking off any additional fruit just to see if we can get these 3 to get all the way up to size. And you can see the hail damage from when they were just basically little tiny things. And you can see how small they are still. But hail damage on them. And these tomatoes out here are doing great. Now here is the cantaloupes that we planted. and they still haven't gotten any bigger. They basically got up to a certain size. They bloomed a little bit, but nothing else. So, and our eggplants over here, we do have finally blooms on them, but they're still pretty short in comparison to our other eggplants. But this is the same soil in all 3 containers, and we have peppers over here, and these peppers are the best ones that we've looked at so far, and they're actually pretty nice sized. They're going to be stuffing sized. So anyway, we've picked about 3 gallons of beans so far from all of our vines. And our extended area is just going nuts over here. It's actually done the best of everything that we've had. And it's new ground with no fertilizer, native soil, and it is just going nuts. We're starting to get cabbages setting on these. And we had a couple of rooted tomatoes we stuck out here, and they perked right up and they're taking right off. And you can see our peas now over here, just going nuts. And we planted a bunch more sunflowers in there that'll hopefully be something for the peas to run up on, as well as the trellis that I made in there. Now the beans that are over here, we've gotten a lot of damage on these. They've gotten pounded by hail. So most of these have just not survived because of just so much hail. But we do have the 4 squash over here still going strong. They are pretty beaten up, but they are getting bigger by the day. So hopefully we'll get something out of those. And all of these flowers through here are just about ready to bloom. These are cosmos and zinnias and a couple other varieties in here. And our morning glories are finally blooming and starting to spread like crazy. So we got a couple of white ones in there, and I did see a pink one which has already come and gone, and then a purple one. Our yellow chamomile is just about ready to go to seed. So it has bloomed its little heart out all summer long, and it's still got new blooms that are coming in on it. But you can see the reddening, the bronzing in there. That is it going to seed. And we have harvested lemon balm off of this lemon balm plant back in here. And now it is finally blooming again, and I'll probably harvest it again just to let it come back out and bloom some more. And we have more chamomile over here. This is German chamomile that you make tea out of. And we can harvest some more flowers off of this. We've harvested about 4 or 5 times off of these guys, as well as our lavender. And we finally have gotten cucumbers that are just going nuts. You can see the cucumbers setting on the vines all throughout. And these are the straight 8 cucumbers, so this will be the pickling cucumbers. We've got some more that are of different ages that are coming on. So lots going on in the garden. Even though it looks beat up, it's still coming strong. And there's a tomatillo over here that is absolutely loaded with tomatillos that are actually ready, just about ready to harvest. Look at that. So we've got tons and tons of food in here, so we will probably put the freeze dryer to use. Now we did have a bunch of cherry tomatoes, little yellow pear tomatoes and sun gold cherry tomatoes, and all kinds of things in here. And these guys have suffered the most out of all the tomatoes from all the damages from the hail. This one finally started picking up and growing again like crazy, and is starting to set fruit, but a few of these are just really struggling and dying off. But we've had plenty of cherry tomatoes for the season, and we still have a lot of cherry tomatoes over here, even though the vines look terrible. And then we've got black cherry tomatoes that are setting on the vines and starting to get ripe. We've got the little red pear tomatoes that are starting to get ripe right now. And we're finally starting to get some pumpkins and squash set on all of our pumpkins and squash over here at the corn. We actually have a pretty nice sized spaghetti squash over here. You can see that guy right there. And we've got another one that's set today, and then another one that's set yesterday, and looks like it has already gotten big enough that it's starting to droop over a little bit. And there's another one. So, and we have corn that is coming to fruition. We've got corn all throughout that is doing really well. See some of the ears in here. So we got corn going. Red curry squash has been really slow this year because of all the damage from the hail, but we're finally starting to get some yellow straight neck squash. All of our eggplants over here starting to set eggplants on them. And we have another tomatillo over here that's starting to set fruit. And another super sauce tomato that is setting fruit on it. And you can see all of the cherry tomatoes in there. So we have loads and loads and loads of cherry tomatoes and lots of bigger tomatoes. But you can see these lemon boys here suffered so much through all that damage. They are just not going to make it. We'll probably have to harvest the tomatoes off of them and just sit them in the windowsill. They've done so badly. And we have beans. So we still have more beans. We'll probably have to pick beans again tomorrow. We have picked and picked and picked and picked beans, but loads more sitting on the vines. And we've even lost a few beans this year to whatever strange things are going on. You can see these here. One of those plants died. I pulled one out already. Another one had died. So we've had issues with the beans as well. I don't know if it's from the rain or if it's something else, but everything seems a little bit off this year, just off. But the beans have done the most, have done the best out of everything. And our 22 in-ground tomatoes are doing absolutely fantastic. They have had one gotten hit by the hail and broken off, but it still has a couple of tomatoes on it. And we're going to let them finish out on what little bit of vine is left on there. But for the most part, these are all Berkeley tie-dyes, black crims, and yellow Kellogg's breakfast tomatoes. So they're a yellow variety of tomato. And they are setting fruit like crazy in here. And they're not super huge, but they are starting to get that way. So they're starting to get a lot bigger now and setting even more fruit on them. And we've got another run of peas that are happening right now. Not quite ready to pick, but they are coming on. So we'll have even more peas to shell. And then we finally are getting some gray zucchini in here that are setting on the vines. You can see one there. We finally got some pollinators started coming in, honeybees and bumblebees and things like that. We'd suffered with not having enough pollinators. It was just too wet. So they are finally doing their job. There's one right now, in fact. So it's been very few bees to do all of this through here. We're going to get a lot of potatoes this season because we've had potatoes that we planted in a few different places. And from what I've seen of the potatoes that are in there, there's some pretty good sized ones. And the vines are beginning to die back now. So they'll probably take about a month to completely die back. And then we will be able to harvest the potatoes in here. But it looks like we're going to have quite a good harvest of potatoes, thank goodness. We had a couple of them rot in the ground, to be honest. We've got some, I think these are the Boston marrows that are beginning to set on the vines on this particular squash. We've got some delicata squash that is blooming and starting to set fruit as well. And they usually don't take very long once they start setting, so it's not going to take just a couple of weeks and they'll start getting pretty big. And you can see, because of all the rain, our dwarf sunflowers are actually 7, 8 feet, 9 feet tall. So this was our living fence. And oh boy, is it ever a living fence. It is enormous and starting to bloom like crazy. You can see some blooms out there. We'll get a little bit closer. I'll show you those. And the white one with the red interior. We haven't had any of the red ones bloom as yet, but they are coming on. We've harvested cabbage. We've had a couple of cabbages that we've harvested. They split from the water, all the rain. We're starting to get our beans running up on our fence. We've got squash that are setting now on all these vines down in here, and you can see just all the damage. All the damage. And there's a squash right there that's setting, and that might be a strawberry crown squash. I'm not real sure because we planted all kinds of varieties in here. We will know when it gets a little bit bigger. So you can see our sunflowers in there, and our broccoli and things is still, yes, and we have the cabbage moths or cabbage butterflies, and we just have to keep a look out for them. And make sure we don't start getting a whole lot of damage, which we haven't. It's just been too rainy, too wet for them to really survive that much. And our cabbages are starting to set cabbages. These are the red acre cabbages. And then we have the Brussels sprouts are starting to form Brussels sprouts on them. Our celery is to the point that we could harvest some of it now. And there's a sunflower hiding in the cosmos. The cosmos are huge. The cosmos are like almost 5 feet tall. They are just so big. And you can see we have some more cabbages in there to harvest. Our red mammoth cabbage are starting to form heads on them. They're actually well on the way. And we have a stonehead cabbage over here that is setting a nice head on it as well. I'm not sure if you can see that. We've got some more celery that we planted in here that's taking off now. We have harvested some carrots that are astonishingly huge that we have never harvested that big before. And I guess they like all the rain because we have gotten carrots that are about 10, 12 inches long and quite huge in here. And we have a lot of big carrots right now. We're just waiting a little bit longer, see how big they get, because some of these are red giant carrots, and that's probably the ones that we've been seeing. And then we have some Nantes in here, and we have some rainbow carrots, and we have some parsnips over here, and our beets are getting pretty huge. We've got beets that are about 6 inches right now, getting huge. Our rutabagas are starting to really get huge now, setting some really nice ones in there. We got some more yellow straight neck squash over here. They're starting to set fruit finally. And we've got our Idaho potatoes over here that were basically some that we threw in the ground that had sprouted in the house. And they've got some pretty nice sized potatoes on them already. And we have some red curry squash over here and some Boston marrows. And those are starting to set fruit as well. And some acorn squash. We've got some white acorn squash in here starting to set fruit. So, lots and lots going on with lots of fruit setting. And I had intended to get in here and do some fall planting for some radishes and things. I did plant some radishes, but I went ahead and took out the radishes over here in bok choy, and I just didn't plant anything back. So I've got to get that done in the next day or two. Our flowers are doing really quite amazing. I'm surprised with all of the hail that we've had. We see marigolds that are just about to the point of blooming. All of our lilies have came and gone, and we've got honey nuts, squash, as well as butternut, and we also have some more Boston marrows out here, and they are starting to bloom and set fruit as well all along the fence. And our sunflowers over here are a little bit behind, but they are coming on and they're starting to get heads on them now, so they're probably going to bloom pretty short. But again, they're dwarf size, so I'm not really sure what all varieties in there are going to be really short varieties, because I planted anything from supposed to be 24 inches at maturity to 5 feet to 7 feet. It just all depends. So lots of growth out there. We've got more strawberries setting in the other kiddie pool out here on the north side. So anyway, all in all, the garden is bounding back from a lot of damage that it received from hail and rain, too much water, and you can see the pumpkin vines got a lot of holes in them from all of the hail, but they are still producing. You can see that our beans are climbing all the way over the top of the fence here. They're blooming. They're starting to set beans on them. These again are rattlesnake pole beans and Kentucky Wonders. The Kentucky Wonders were planted a little bit behind, so they are just now beginning to take off. So we'll get loads of beans off of these. We've already gotten about Like I said, 3 gallons of green beans. I've put 5 large quart bags in my freezer, and we're going to have even more. And our calendula and things like that we planted all around in this area are starting to really take off. They're all along the fence. And then we have some spinach in here, but we had a lot of damage from just the rain and everything for the spinach, so I'm going to have to come back in here and replant. Anyway, that is the garden in a nutshell, so hopefully you got to see all of that. So like, subscribe, hit the notification bell for notices on new videos as they come out, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one.